Okay, welcome everybody. We're gonna get started. I'm Carrie from the Crossroads Teaching Kitchen, and this is my husband, Kevin.
Hi, everyone.
We're happy to show you two really easy recipes and recipes with benefit. The first recipe we're gonna get started on is a sheet pan dinner. And the benefit of this one is that it's veggie heavy and it's utilizing foods that you can buy at the grocery store that will last in your refrigerator for 3, 4, 5 weeks even. They're root vegetables. And then the second recipe that we're going to show you once the sheet pan dinner gets in the oven is a mushroom pate. We've had so many requests for mushroom dishes since we know that they boost our immune system. And I feel like I've taught a lot of mushroom recipes in these classes, but I haven't taught a pate. So we're going to try one tonight and see how it comes out. So pull up your recipes in another browser if you want to follow along. And we're going to get started with the sheet pan dish. And a sheet pan dish is just awesome because it's literally, you're just cooking all on one pan. There's not multiple pans going on. So it helps with cleanup. On our sheet pan here, we've already started to cut up the vegetables. And it calls for about 4 cups of root vegetables and whatever it is you have. So what do we have today?
We have a rutabaga, which looks like this. It's purple and, I don't know, yellowish.
That's the inside.
Yeah, you'll find it in the root vegetable section of your local produce market.
And we've had that for probably 4 weeks.
Yeah.
It looks gnarly, but it's still really good.
Yeah, once you peel it, like all the blemishes and things come off. We have some purple potatoes that we've cut up there. Purple, they're sweet potatoes, yeah?
Yeah.
And then this right here is a radish of some sort. I don't know, daikon radish maybe?
A purpley radish?
It's a purpley radish, yeah.
And this comes from?
Yeah, Moon Valley Farm.
They're a cool farm just north of Baltimore that's doing community supported agriculture, or CSA. So you pay a certain amount of money up front, and then every week you get a delivery right to your door of fresh farm veggies. So they usually send us cool things that I normally wouldn't find in the grocery store, like a purple radish. It tastes a lot like a regular radish. We also just have some regular sweet potato in here too. So the idea is to get about 4 cups of whatever root vegetable you have. Right now you can get red radishes at the grocery store. We usually think about red radishes as raw, but they're delicious roasted. So cut those up, get them on your sheet pan, and then you want to use about a tablespoon of your oil, and then a little bit of salt and pepper. And our oven's preheated at 375. Hey, Mike and Jessica, what are you cooking for your root vegetables? Let us know in the chat. And it looks like Daryl is cooking chicken. Awesome. What about your root vegetables, Daryl? And a little trivia question for those of you not cooking, you can still participate. What is the antioxidant that's found in orange vegetables like sweet potato that's really good for your immune system? Go ahead and put that in the chat if you know. Okay, so in the oven, and we're going to set a timer for about 20 minutes. No answers yet. You're thinking really hard. Mike says beta carotene. Yep, good job. Bonnie, good job. All right, and you guys are cooking with carrots, sweet potato, beet, and rutabaga as well. Yeah, awesome. That's all gonna taste really good together. So we can get the rest of our recipe ready while the root vegetables are cooking. The next part, you're gonna grab a bowl and just dump most of the rest of the ingredients other than the protein in the bowl. So we've got 1 shallot or 1 small onion. Our onion was kind of big, so I just cut it in half. And we just want this sliced. And then we're gonna need 2 cloves of garlic And to get the most medicinal benefit, antiviral benefit, antimicrobial benefit, you're gonna wanna cut that garlic up at least 10 minutes before you cook it. That's gonna help increase the amount of antibacterial activity and antiviral activity. And then we're gonna use 1 can, actually we have a jar of artichokes. We actually have marinated, but you could use artichokes that are in water. But what we're gonna wanna do is just drain this. So I'm gonna drain this in the sink, and then Kevin's gonna measure out 1/4 cup of capers. But you're gonna wanna do that with like a fork because the brine in the capers is really salty. So the fork will help get rid of that extra brine.
You can even rinse them too if you find them to be too salty even after draining them off.
A good substitution for capers would be any olive of choice, like Kalamatas are delicious. Castelventranos are these green olives that are really good. And then if you don't have artichokes, you could use really any kind of pickled preserved vegetable, like pickled beets would add a nice flavor. You could also do roasted bell pepper in a jar. Okay, so now we're gonna use 1/4 cup of lemon juice, which is the equivalent of about 2 lemons. Oh, what happened to our screen?
Can you still see us, everyone?
We're looking at Judy's screen. Hold on, we'll fix it. We can figure it out.
View options.
Hey, Judy, can you take your screen off share? Screen share is at the bottom. It's in the middle. It says share screen. Just unshare your screen. There we go. Okay, all set. So about the juice of 2 lemons. My gosh, this one's a workout. Okay. Ooh. Thanks.
Muscles.
These are massive lemons from Costco, so we probably don't need 2 full lemons, so I'm just gonna use 1.5 lemons. But the lemon is really what makes this dish. It's bright and it reminds me of spring. It's just light and delicious. So you can go a little heavy on that lemon. All right, and then if you guys are gonna use the dried herb in the recipe, you'd add the dry herb now. So it calls for 1 teaspoon of dried herb of choice. So that could be like dried dill, dried basil, rosemary, oregano, parsley, or you could use Italian seasoning mixture. If you're using fresh herbs, like we've got a big package of fresh basil, we're gonna wanna add that at the very end. Let's see if we got any questions. Are we still on the root veggie tray? Yes. So the root veggies went in the oven and there's a timer set for 20 minutes. And we are just on number 3. So all the ingredients that go on top of the root vegetables and the chicken or fish for Mike and Jessica, that's in a bowl here and we're just mixing those up. Whoops, capers escaped. Escapers. That's a good one. All right, so we don't have to do anything with this dish for about 20 minutes now because the veggies are just cooking in there. So we can move on to, well, first of all, does anyone have any questions about that dish so far? Okay, cool. So we're gonna move on to the mushroom pate recipe. All right, we've got, you can throw these in the refrigerator. So we've got just some brown button mushrooms or cremini mushrooms or baby portobellas, whatever you want to call them, they're all the same. So these little guys here. These also came in the CSA farm delivery. They're grown on the eastern shore of Maryland by a company called King Farm. So nice and fresh. So we need about 3 cups of the mushrooms, and you don't need to wash these under water. You just want to take a damp paper towel and brush off it's not necessarily dirt, it's just like straw that they're grown in, so it looks like dirt, but it's not dirt. But you just clean them up a little bit. And then once they look clean enough, you can slice them down. And we're looking to fill up about 3 cups. So I've already got 2 in here, and I'm gonna put the 3rd cup here. All right, now we're gonna go over to the stove and start cooking these in a hot pan. So hold on, we're moving you. Can you grab them?
Okay. Which side do you want it on? Side closest to your.
All right, so you don't have to see our faces, that's all right. Let's put you all the way down here, perfect. So we've got the biggest pan that we have. It's 12 inches or so, and that's really important to be able to cook the mushrooms well. So, oh, hold on, one question. Is it 2 tablespoons each of butter, olive oil, or total? Okay, yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that. So 1 tablespoon of your choice, olive oil or butter, goes on the root vegetables when they're roasting, and then the remaining 3 tablespoons of butter or olive oil, or a combination, goes into the bowl to go on top later. Okay, back to the mushrooms here. So big pan, we're gonna add about 2 tablespoons here of olive oil or butter, or a mixture of both. We ran out of butter, sadly. If we had some, I would probably do 1 tablespoon of butter and 1 tablespoon of olive oil, just because it tastes really good that way. And this recipe starts out just like any other mushroom cooking recipe. Mushrooms first, hot pan, some kind of fat, and laying them as close to a single layer as possible. That way they don't steam, because the goal here is to cook out the water, and a mushroom is like 75% water. It's quite a lot. And water tastes like water. So our goal is to get most of that water out with the help of a little bit of sea salt here. That'll help pull that water out. Okay. What is in, here, another trivia question. What is in mushrooms that make them so good for our immune system? Who's going to be the first to answer in the chat? So I'm just spreading them out a little bit more, but I'm not going to saute or stir at this point. I'm going to let them sit there and brown and get nice and brown on one side.
Yeah.
All right, Bonnie says vitamin D. Correct. There is vitamin D in mushrooms, but only if they've been exposed to sunlight. So a lot of these are grown indoors, but companies are now using UV light in the grow room to express vitamin D. So that's great. And of course, wild mushrooms that are growing outside have sun exposure all the time. There's another compound in mushrooms called beta-glucan, and that's a carbohydrate molecule that helps stimulate or relax the immune system depending on what the immune system is in need of. So that's a real special one. It's only really found in mushrooms, barley, and oats. Hey, Ellen, did you just show up? Sorry, you have to use the chat. Everybody is on mute. Question, when you pour from the bottle, how do you know when you have a tablespoon of olive oil without measuring? Experience, just doing it enough times, and it's okay to go over. And if you go under, you'll just maybe see that it's pretty dry in here, so you might want to add a little bit more. You know, olive oil is fantastic. It's in so many studies shows to assist in weight loss. So a lot of people are like, oh no, it's fat, it's gonna make me gain weight. Well, according to studies, it might even help you lose weight. So don't worry about going a little overboard with your olive oil. Okay, Ellen, this is recording, so we'll send you a copy when we're done. And just so you know, you have a copy of the recipes in your email to follow along. It's gonna get noisy over here, so we're gonna move you back over there, and I'll bring the pan over so you can see the process. Yeah. Okay, so there's a question about the mushroom powder. Is it as nutritious as the actual mushroom? In some aspects, yes. And in fact, the mushroom powder that I was recommending you guys to get, this OM, it does have vitamin D in it. It's not a whole lot, but it's still some. And it has the same amount of beta glucans for your immune system as fresh mushrooms. It has as much fiber, so that's good. I'm sure it's missing a couple of nutrients because it's dehydrated, but for the most part, it's going to do the same thing for your immune system. So this is a product that I like. We sell it at Crossroads Apothecary. And if you want to up the immune supportive properties of the pate, you can put a few tablespoons of this in at the end when we're blending it up. It doesn't really taste like anything, which is nice. Okay, so we can go over the other ingredients of the pate. So we're gonna need 1 shallot or 1 small onion thinly sliced, 2 cloves of garlic, and I cut those up or mince that up ahead of time so we get the most amount of immune benefit there. So 10 minutes is that magic number. Cut up your garlic, let it sit 10 minutes, and at that point, you can go ahead and cook it. We'll also need some rosemary. You can use fresh or dry. The amount of fresh rosemary will be more than dried because dried is really intense in flavor. For a vinegar, you can choose. Hopefully you have one of these 3 on hand: balsamic vinegar, or red wine vinegar, or sherry vinegar. With your balsamic vinegar, one thing to really check for when you're buying balsamic is that there is no sugar in the ingredients. That's a product where it varies across brands. Some will have so much added sugar in it, and we just don't need that extra sugar. I think balsamic is sweet on its own. So in your ingredients for balsamic, look for cooked grape must. That's the only thing that should be in there. Let's see. We'll also need a couple ingredients to give it body. Must, M-U-S-T. Question is, must or musk? Cooked grape must. So the ingredients to give the pate body, of course we have the mushrooms, we have some onions, but we want it just a little bit more thick. So we're gonna add some beans, and you can use whatever beans you have on hand. I would prefer a white bean versus a black bean, but I'm sure black would work too. We have navy beans. In the past, I've used white beans or cannellini or Great Northern, and that's fantastic. And then you're gonna want some nuts. We happen to have pecans, but I think also walnuts, almonds, even hazelnuts, if you have those, that would be really delicious. We have those ready. And then at the end, we'll just need a little liquid to get it to blend. So if you don't have any broth, that's okay. You can use some water. And then after that, it's just salt and pepper and some chili if you like spice. So yeah, Kevin, come on over. Let's show them what it's looking like. So they definitely look, maybe we can get another light on. Yeah, they look darker. They've shriveled up a little bit. So that's looking good. He's gonna stir them, and we'll cook them for like 3 to 4 more minutes to get a brown on the other side. How's everyone going? That's cooking along. Thumbs up? Awesome. What you need?
What? Onions and garlic?
Yeah, but bring it over to put them in. The onions and garlic are right over there.
You want it now?
Couple minutes. I forgot to add the additional olive oil to the sheet pan dish, so I'm just gonna drop that in now. And for those of you that are questioning my measuring skills, I'll actually measure this time. So I need about 3 tablespoons of olive oil and or butter. But I'm just gonna use olive oil because we're out of butter. But I do like the half and half butter olive oil flavor. Okay, while we're waiting for the mushrooms to continue browning, I'll show you a little trick for working with fresh basil. So this basil is gonna end up going on our sheet pan dish at the end. So I need to cut some up. So with basil, especially with these big leaves, they're really easy to work with. You can pick off the leaves and start to layer them on top of one another. And then once you have a good stack, you can roll the leaves. Just realized you can't see that. There we go. Okay, so you can roll these leaves. And then with your knife, you can start to make slices. This is called a what?
A chiffonade.
Chiffonade. That's the fancy term for making ribbons out of herbs. But that's a way to cut up a bunch of them at once.
All right, these are ready.
Okay, so everyone, we're gonna move on in the pate to step number 2. So come on over.
Okay.
Yeah, you can put it right on here. Okay. 2 tablespoons of either butter or olive oil. And then we've got our chopped onion and chopped garlic. And then we also need the rosemary. Will you grab the rosemary? It's right over there. And the teaspoon. Since we have dried rosemary, we're going to put in only, let's see, 1.5 teaspoons. But if you guys have fresh, 2 teaspoons. Rosemary is a really great antioxidant herb, so use lots of that in your cooking. So we'll give this a good stir, and it's gonna start smelling really good, but we need to get it back on the oven, so thank you. So you're gonna cook that until the onion gets a little bit more translucent and the garlic gets really fragrant. So that'll take 2 minutes. And then we can get our balsamic vinegar ready. You can measure out at this point about 1/4 of a cup, or you could use the red wine vinegar or the sherry vinegar. So this one is from Sprouts, and its ingredients, it's actually mixed with wine vinegar and then concentrated grape must. But most importantly, there's no sugar, label of sugar in the ingredients, so we know there's no added sugar. All right, so for those of you that are cooking the root vegetables, your timers are probably going off. It's been about 20 minutes. So I'm gonna bring those over to you and show you what's happening. For now, we'll just keep the mushrooms on low so they're not burning or anything. We're not gonna put the vinegar in yet. We'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so our root veggies look good. I'm gonna toss them a little bit. Okay, and now we're gonna take the chicken, or Mike and Jessica, you guys are using salmon, so you're gonna go ahead and keep cooking your root vegetables another 10 minutes because the salmon cooks a lot faster than the chicken. So in 10 more minutes, take your veggies out and put the salmon on top. Do everything else I'm doing. But for us, we're using chicken, and chicken takes a little bit longer than the fish. So I'm gonna grab our chicken and lay that on top of the veggies now. So we've got some boneless, skinless chicken thighs. Pretty much that's the only chicken we eat around here. It just tastes better, it's more tender, it's super hard to overcook, that's a plus. And then let's just give it a little sprinkling of salt, pepper right on top. And now we can take this delicious springy mixture here and just pour that over top. Making sure to get some of this lemon juice and olive oil on top of the chicken. Spreading out the artichokes, capers, onions. And as this cooks, it's gonna pull all the juice out of the chicken as well. So you're gonna have this really good pan dripping or pan juices at the end that we can actually put on the meal at the end. So back in the oven this goes. And again, we're not adding the basil yet. We're gonna wait till the end. That's what that looks like. And this is gonna go in for 20 more minutes. Bring that over. Okay, remember our mushrooms? So it's mushrooms, garlic, onion, rosemary, and they're definitely brown. So now we're gonna take the 1/4 of a cup of balsamic vinegar and pour it in, and it's gonna sizzle. So let's move away from the computer. And then Kevin's doing the scraping action to get any like delicious bits that are stuck on the bottom. Try not to breathe that in. It's really irritating on the throat, but it smells really good. I wish I could send the smell to the camera. So now you're gonna reduce the heat. It started on about medium. We're gonna reduce the heat to low and let that simmer just for like a minute. And then our other ingredients are gonna go in. So the other ingredients are the nuts, the beans, sea salt. So we're just gonna start with a 1/2 teaspoon. The original recipe that I used to make, I think was a little bit more than that, but let's start with a 1/2. Everyone's taste buds are different. You can always add, but you can't subtract. So we're gonna need the sea salt over there and black pepper. And we like a little bit of spice, so I think we'll add just like a dash of chili, but not too much. So we're gonna go do that now, and then that's gonna simmer on the stove on low for about 5 minutes. Oh, and the broth too, the broth. So nuts, beans, broth, salt, pepper, chili. Let that simmer for about 5 minutes. A 40 foot. All right, question. Is there a reason you lay it on top as opposed to next to? Yeah, the chicken will actually flavor the vegetables much better, and they'll cook faster because they're almost like steaming under the chicken. You could try it on the side. I've never done it at the same time to see if there's a big difference, but I usually just do it on top, and then the veggies taste absolutely delicious. It's sort of like the same concept of if you cook a whole chicken, and usually you'll have a pan and you put vegetables at the bottom, and then you put the chicken on top, and the chicken cooks over the veggies. So similar to that, mostly for flavor. Question, should we put the rest of our veggies on the pan now or when we do the salmon. Which other veggies? Just remind me what you have. And yep, the mushrooms are still simmering with all of the rest of the ingredients. So we're on the pretty much the last step here. We've got the mushrooms plus the nuts, beans, broth, water, salt, pepper, chili flake. That's gonna simmer there for about 5 more minutes. Okay, Mike and Jessica, you have roasted red peppers, shallot, and olives. Yep, go ahead and put that with the salmon. So you can, when you take it out in 10 minutes, you put your salmon on top, then you can put all those delicious flavors on top. So to finish the pate, you're going to need some kind of blender or chopper or food processor. We at the Keaton Kitchen usually use this guy. This is one of my favorite kitchen appliances. There's 3 for the price of 1. It's a baby chopper, a medium blender, and a big blender, and they all share the same attachment or motor. So this is the Ninja Professional Prep Series. And if you're into cooking or you're new to cooking, this is something I always recommend. It's not too expensive. I want to say it's between 40 and 60 depending on the year, time of year that is. So we have a medium amount of ingredients, so I'd probably use this size here, but I have my food processor out, so I'm going to use that too.
All right, yeah, I'm showing this next year.
Oh.
You're showing this next year.
Sure. Okay, so grab the vessel that you're going to blend in, and oh, that smells really good. You can pour those ingredients in. Mushroom powder. Immune, oh, there it is. Okay, so we're gonna add a little bit of extra immune boost here and put some of this powder in here. We're running low, we gotta stock up. So if you call the apothecary to order this, mention you are on this class tonight and they'll give you a 10% discount and they'll ship it out for free. Free shipping, not free product. Okay, so we've got that good stuff in there. Now I'm gonna blend it up. I'm gonna make it so that it's mostly smooth, but I do want some texture. I really like a little bit of that nut texture still in there. So this is the before and back. Okay, so it needs to be scraped down. It's not completely smooth. But then again, I do want some texture, but I want it a little bit more smooth than this. So I'm gonna scrape the sides down and blend one more time. So it's not the prettiest thing in the world, that's for darn sure, but it tastes really good. It's up to you at this point. You could taste it for texture, and if you feel like you want a little bit more smooth, scrape it down and keep going. This has got some nice consistency. It's got like some of the nuts still whole in here. Well, not whole, but chopped down. So at this point, you want to taste it, and you can add a little extra sea salt or a little extra vinegar. Yeah, I actually think the half a teaspoon was a good call. I think any more, and that sea salt would have been too much. So perfect, it's done. Now you can store it in a glass container in the refrigerator for 5 to 7 days. It probably won't last that long, so it's really delicious. So how to use this? Well, it definitely makes a good spread. So you could spread it on crackers, on toast. You could actually just use like large slices of bell pepper, scoop it up and eat veggies on veggies. Technically, that's a faux pas. Mushroom is not a vegetable, it's fungus. So fungus on vegetables, that sounds like a problem too. Anyway, you catch my drift. But another great thing that you can do with this is mix it into things like grains or pasta or grains and beans that are pretty bland tasting. You could just scoop a couple tablespoons and mix that into warm rice and beans. If you want to use it as a pasta sauce, what you'll have to do is like measure out a quarter cup or a half a cup, however much you think you need for sauce. Put that in a saucepan and then whisk in tablespoon by tablespoon, like either chicken stock or veggie stock or even white wine. That's going to thin the sauce. Well, right now it's a dip, but if you want to make it a pasta sauce, you're going to use the broth or the water or wine, thin it, and then you can mix it with pasta. Also, if you just have like a fillet of chicken or a fillet of salmon, for example, you can have that just fillet and then take a good dollop of this and spread it on top, like say a pesto. Think about this as like a mushroom pesto, a rosemary mushroom pesto, that is. So that's that. Let's see, any questions about the pate? It's really good. I wish I could send some through the screen to you. Now everyone's doing good. Can I show the texture? Yeah. I can't tell if this light is making it better or worse. Let's go over here. So it's, yeah, it's thick. And it's coarse. There's definitely some nuts still in there, but there's no full mushroom. You can't see any full mushrooms. So because it's so ugly, what you could do is take some green herbs and go like that, and now it's pretty. Or if anyone was on the class yesterday where we talked about wild spring edibles, this right here, you might recognize from a tree. It's an eastern redbud. And these little purple flowers are delicious and edible. They're actually stock full of vitamin C. So it gives them a little bit of like a tart flavor. So we could totally decorate our ugly mushroom dish with these eastern redbuds. And I bet if you walk like 15 minutes in any direction, you'll find an eastern redbud tree right now in full bloom. They're gorgeous. And while you're at it, you could take a branch off, bring it home, and then I've had this in water for, it'll be a week tomorrow. So the buds are still looking pretty good, and it makes a really pretty spring display. Yeah, like refried beans. That's a really good way to put it. That's pretty much what the dish looks like. All right. So we've got a few more minutes before the chicken sheet pan dish is done. And really the end of that dish is just to put the fresh herbs on top if you're using fresh. If you use dried, you're good. You don't have to add anything. And then you would plate it. So plating options, you could do greens as a plate. So we'll do one with greens. We have spinach in there, I think. So spinach would be a good green to use because the food is going to be warm and it'll go on top of the spinach and it'll be like a wilted spinach salad, which is good. Or we also have some leftover jasmine rice here. So you could do a plate of just rice and the sheet pan dinner on top, or you could do just spinach. I actually like to mix them. So you have a little bit of rice, you have a little bit of greens, and then when that dish comes out, you can put a piece of chicken and lots of veggies, and then the juice that's accumulating on the pan, you're gonna put that all on top. It's kind of like your dressing. Anything you want to add, Chef?
Nope. That all sounds great.
Well, we've got some time, so you can take yourself off mute and ask Kevin some really technical cooking questions.
Oh,
Or comments, whatever.
Carrie, what was the name of the farm that your husband works at or has veggies from?
Yeah, they're called Moon Valley Farm.
Moon
Valley.
Okay.
Still
Yeah.
accepting CSAs.
And right now they're doing delivery CSA. So you get a box of their vegetables delivered to your house. So it prevents you from going to the store, which is great. But a lot of people have signed up, so I'm not sure that they're still available. So I would check their webpage for more information.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Another resource we just found out about yesterday is that a couple of the big warehouses that send vegetables out to grocery stores are opening up to public purchase. So there's one called Coastal Sunbelt Produce, and they're in Jessup. And I think on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they have pickup for boxes of vegetables. It's a pretty good deal. You get a huge box of vegetables for $25. They also have boxes of fruit, and then they have boxes of mixed fruit and vegetables. They have an essentials box, which has things like eggs, milk, butter, vegetables. So check them out if you're looking to find alternatives to the grocery store.
They just, Howard County now has a website, and I don't remember what it is, but it's a website that shows all the farms that have produce and eggs and so forth for sale. So I think if you just search it on Google, you'll find it, for farms.
Thank you. That's a great resource. Well, I guess one benefit of this is that we're getting back to local food systems and supporting our local farmers. So that's a plus.
Absolutely.
Hopefully all of you have a digital thermometer, not the ones for taking your temperature, but a meat thermometer. And this is great. They're not expensive, $10, $12, and it'll prevent you from overcooking protein, which stinks sometimes. You know, you spend all this time cooking, and then next thing you know, your chicken is rubber and you can bounce it off the floor. So yeah, Kevin's gonna go check the temperature of our chicken. Chicken should be cooked to 165 or higher. And chicken thighs actually, I think, tastes a little bit better at higher. What do you think, Kev?
Yeah, like 175 to 180.
Yeah, you can cook chicken thighs. He said 175 to 180. So you can overcook, technically, chicken thighs, and they still taste really good. What are we at?
Like 130.
130. So
And we still
still a
have
little bit.
like 3 minutes.
Yeah. So my directions do say that if at the 10-minute it's 20 minutes, if at the 20-minute alarm, if it's not cooked, then cook it in 5-minute increments and test the temperature, take the temperature again. For those of you that want to do fish, the temperature should be 145. You could also do this, I know no one's doing this tonight, but you could do this completely vegetarian. You could take beans, whether you cook them from scratch or you use a can. You can drain the can, rinse the can of beans, and then towards the end of the cook, like say the last 10 minutes, you would add the can of beans, and then you could add the topping of the artichokes and all that. So the beans would add some good protein, and it would make it very filling and satisfying. What else could you do? Shrimp?
Yeah, I think shrimp will work.
Yeah. Defrost your shrimp, and those cook fast. What do you think for an oven at 375?
Like 5 minutes at most.
Yeah. So you'd cook your vegetables until they're pretty tender, to the point where you feel like you could eat them and be satisfied with the texture. Add the shrimp at that point. Add the veggie topping. The only thing I see a problem there is the garlic and onion that we added to the veggie topping might not be cooked thoroughly.
Oh yeah.
So you could add the veggie, take the onion and the garlic out of the topping, add that in with the vegetables in the beginning.
Yeah, that would be the move.
Is that clear?
Carrie, I had a question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
What's the name of the place in Jessup?
Coastal Sunbelt Produce.
And I had one more question too, on the mushrooms. I know you taught us that when the mushrooms are cooked, you get the immunity. Once you make the pate, does the immunity go down?
No, you still get the immune benefits, because the beta glucans are what gives you those immune benefits, and they're most available when they're cooked, but they're probably even more available when they're minced up like that, because you have to chew mushrooms really well to obtain that good beta glucan. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I eat really fast. I'm working on it. So mincing it is helpful.
Okay, thanks a lot. Hi, Rachel. Okay.
So question, someone wanted me to repeat the shrimp sheet pan dinner. What I will do is make a revision in the recipe for the shrimp option, and then I'll email that to you guys with the recording. So that was the 20-minute timer for the chicken.
Yeah, so we're gonna need a little bit longer.
I had another question. Where's that Moon Valley Farm at?
It's in I think it's Cockeysville, Maryland.
Okay.
Yeah, so like Towson area.
Okay, I was just curious where it is. I've been going to Frank's near all of us.
Oh, are they open right now?
No, unfortunately, but really good quality there. Some of the things I've got there. Okay, thank you guys.
Sure, yeah. I guess Clark Farm would be another good option
Yeah,
locally.
tell them about Clark.
Clark Elioke Farm off of Route 108 in Howard County, I think would be a good option. They have produce and meat. I'm not sure what they have as far as produce goes at the moment, but I know they do CSA shares as well throughout the at least late spring and summer and into the fall. And then their meat is great, grass-fed beef. They do pasture-raised pork, maybe poultry.
They have lamb.
Lamb, yeah,
I think they do eggs.
I believe so, yeah.
You could sign up for their newsletter, and I believe it's every Friday or Thursday. They send a newsletter out telling you what their availability is for the week. All right, we'll check our chicken one more time. So we're coming up on the end of our session, and things are coming together. How are you guys doing at home cooking? Jessica, you got a question? How are things going? You all good? Pate is delicious. All right. Do you feel like it had enough salt? Salmon is almost ready. Okay. Cool. So if you love the pate, you should double the recipe because it's just so good for you. And we could probably, the two of us will cruise through this between tonight and the next night, maybe Saturday if we're lucky. But if it's just one person and you don't think you'll consume it in 5 to 7 days, you can freeze it. It'll freeze really well. One thing I would recommend is that you, when you put it in whatever vessel it is you're gonna freeze, take saran wrap and press it on the top of the pate, press down, so there's really no air between the pate at all, because then you won't get as freezer burnt. So if you find that your pate is liquidy, maybe what you could do next time is when you get to the point where you're pouring the broth in the pan, continue cooking that, because the broth will simmer and evaporate. So it's actually better to have like less liquid than more liquid. So if you look at it and it looks dry, go ahead and blend that anyway. You can always add liquid, but you can't take it out. So maybe you just didn't cook it enough on the stove to evaporate that liquid.
Yeah, Carrie, what was I just forgot what I was going to ask you. Never mind, I'll come.
Okay, what's the story?
Okay, we're ready to come over.
All right, the chicken is at 165.
Yeah, Carrie, where'd you get the chicken from?
It came out of our freezer, so something we bought a really long time ago. Yeah, I haven't been to the grocery store in many, many days, weeks. So all of this came from pretty much the freezer and the pantry, and like the root vegetables, as I was saying, had those around for like 4 weeks. So the last step here is just to put that basil on top, and then you can mix it together. And let me just get something to mix. Okay, and then we've got the rice and the spinach here. You can take a big helping of the vegetables, put those down, and then take a piece of chicken. And then you're gonna want a spoon to get some of the pan sauce. Kev, will you tilt that for me? So in the corner of your sheet pan, you should have some good juices. That can go right on the chicken. And then, because we have it, so here's that mushroom pate. We can put it right on top of the chicken and basically just spread it on top. It'll make the chicken even more moist, but because we're using thighs, it's already moist.
Get a couple artichokes on there.
Yep, get a little, our edible red bud in there. And you can put more basil. And don't forget, yep, artichokes. Artichokes are a spring vegetable, so we're trying to eat as much of those as possible. All right, there you go. There's your dinner. I'm gonna send it through the computer, okay? All right, well, that wraps up the cook along. For those of you that cooked along, enjoy your dinner. And for those of you who didn't, hopefully you can make something this weekend and share it with us on our Facebook page, Crossroads Apothecary and Teaching Kitchen. And I'll be in touch with the recording and the updated recipes. So have a great night, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, thanks for joining.